Greetings. Welcome to Wake the Dead. Today we are delighted to have returning guest William Ramsey. Welcome, William.
Sean, great to be with you again.
Awesome. William can be found at williamramseyinvestigates.com, and you can find iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all those. You can find his audio podcast called William Ramsey Investigates. He's done 5 books, is it? Five books, and many documentaries as well. And we're very glad that you're a friend of the show and that you're returning again today to teach us about what you've been researching lately. You most recently we had 2 shows about the Pilgrims Society, and that's about the hierarchy of British order of power, I guess, in this New World Order system. And I guess your investigations have taken you down this other pathway here, you're going to teach us about the Knights of Malta.
Yeah, they do kind of overlap, this Knights of Malta and the Pilgrim Society in a way. These are kind of like old, ancient, heraldric families and things like that, and their kind of associations. So we did the Pilgrim Society, which started in the early 20th century and is kind of at the apex of the British Empire, really. And I've come to the conclusion it's an influence on the United States. But this is something that goes all the way back to the Middle East or to the Holy Land from the 11th century Crusades, known as the Knights of Malta, not to be confused with the Templars. A lot of people know the story of the Templars, where they were also from the Middle East, a kind of modern banking kind of group, a knight group, but they were kind of wrapped up in the 14th century. And the last one was Jacques de Molay, who kind of carries on in the Masonic tradition, believe it or not. But that's the Templars, and some of their remnants are around the West. But this is the Knights of Malta, another group also known as the Hospitallers. So they're distinctly different, but this was a group, and it's based upon the Order of St. John. So St. John the Baptist, right? Preceded Christ, and according to the New Testament. So they are part of that, and they really were a kind of order that was supposed to help people in hospitals and heal people. But they kind of were always kind of fighting against the Muslims. So the Crusaders, they were kicked out after kind of the fall of Jerusalem. They went to Cyprus, and then Cyprus fell, and they went to Rhodes, the island of Rhodes, kind of in the Aegean Sea, and then they were kicked out of there and ended up in Malta. Malta is a series of 3 islands in the kind of smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, just south of Sicily. And so this is the Maltese cross. If you're watching this, you'll see this 8-pointed star or cross, and you'll see that just the regalia is full of this same cross all over the world. Anyway, they went to Malta. They resisted the invasion of the Ottoman Empire in the 16th century. There was a famous battle there of these Maltese knights, or Knights of Malta, fighting off kind of overwhelming odds and saved the island. And then Napoleon, on his way to Egypt, he famously shot off the nose of the Sphinx while he was in Egypt in 1798. On his way, he overthrew Malta and kicked the Knights out. But the Knights of Malta are kind of an unaffiliated international group that is under the Holy See. They kind of have an arcane structure, but they are part of the Catholic Church, and they are up to this present day. So they're around. They have 13,500 members. And I did this show with Courtney Turner on her podcast, and I did all the research, and really important, much more probably not emphasized, but like I've titled this Trump 2024, because there are Knights of Malta all through his kind of in his administration and in the U.S. government and in his friend circle. So they overlap this kind of tradition that almost is never really talked about publicly. There's little hints here and there. There was kind of a famous kerfluffle between Seymour Hersh and the Knights of Malta during the Iraq War, the occupation in the Middle East, and some of these other members. So there's overlaps with the Knights of Malta and some of these other Catholic groups. So it is a kind of Catholic, and it has an international connections and overlaps with Opus Dei, which is another secretive Catholic group. But the Knights of Malta really are kind of an interesting piece of long-term millennial history going back 1,000 years that are still with us today. Some critics have stated that it's defunct, that it doesn't mean much, and that they're LARPing. So they're live action role playing with these cloaks and having a good old time. But I found the opposite is that I think they take themselves very seriously, that they are part of the Catholic tradition. And they do believe they're kind of a modern knighthood. And they involved some names and faces people would be surprised to see. We were talking in the pre-show. We talked for an hour in the pre-show, but John Roberts, who is today is the inauguration of Trump, it's January 20th, 2025. Roberts is right there in the front, member of Knights of Malta. And also it's kind of like the Pilgrim Society, where you can kind of get lists of members in certain places, but I'm unable to find the true member list of the Knights of Malta. But you get hints of people. They have active websites, so you can see all of their kind of groupings all throughout the world. And you can get some membership things of people who have admitted they're Knights of Malta. And we'll see some kind of famous names that overlap with the Pilgrim Society. King Charles III is one. There's no question. He's actually said, like, I have total fealty with the people of Malta and things like that. But
Really?
yeah. And you'll see. I think I have that in this new set of slides that I have up here. So I think, but it goes back in some of the shows that we've done. We've done so many shows on Eyes Wide Shut. These are the people who have like landed estates, landed aristocracy of Europe. So these old European families who are around even when these nation states change their borders and things like that. These are like the old kind of Prussian nobility and Spanish and French and Italian, and with weird names you may see, or even Hungarian, Serbian. So
Mountbatten.
Yeah. So you'll see these kind of names, and these are the old things. I was talking to Liza. We mentioned this in the pre-show. Liza of Occult Rejects. They used to not let in the kind of aristocratic people into their group, is my understanding. I have to research this in more detail, but apparently they've started doing that now, and that's definitely the case because there are people involved in this. And we'll see some interesting faces and people involved in the Trump 2024. I did another show. I titled it, Are the Crusaders Back? About 2024. And I think that's a good question. I don't know if the answer is that they are back, but I think that this mentality and the focus on the Middle East of these kind of Christian Catholic people is excellent. I think it's important for people to understand, especially with this kind of changing of the guard from the Biden to the Trump administration.
Right. Yeah. And, the original Crusades was a way of killing off the masses and, consolidating power. And it was a change from the old world to a new world. We had the Renaissance after that and the whole Silk Road and such. Right. So maybe we're going to have that again. China's doing that new Silk Road, and we're going to have that new world order. Right.
Right, Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? That's something Musk said, and has it on his clothes, right?
Yeah, and he's got his Halloween costume. He's like the champion of Satan or something,
right? Very interesting crimes, and these are interesting characters. So,
and you were talking about like, how this relates to Eyes Wide Shut. I just wanted to point out that this is an 8-pointed star. This is the Star of Ishtar. I mean, it's kind of fancy looking, it's a little different, but still, it's an 8-pointed star. And and if you think about it, if you really understand you go back and listen to the other shows that I did with Johnny Cerrucci, maybe last couple years ago. We talked about how it's not just the Jews. The Jews work for the Roman Catholics, the Vatican bankers, right? So there's these other levels of power, and it's like it is there. We can see it, but we all blind. We just want to see, that's Jewish power. And it's like this other, like it's using them as the age-old scapegoat. It's always been, and Trump is connected to that, the Jewish power. And then the Jewish power, along with the Italian power, with the mafia, was very connected, And that whole mafia with the New York architecture, let's say, like the whole unions of New York and how the mafia is in control of all of that. So like we know that Trump is related to that whole syndicate, I guess. And so that is Roman Catholic too. You know, you got those Italian mafia is the same. You know, they do the same rituals as the Roman Catholic Church. And yeah, the Roman Catholic Church is a goddess worship, anti-Christian, like anti-Christ, basically. You know, they are a false Christ. They're the vicar of Christ. You know, like they are the antichrist, really, literally. And so this is the beast system that you know, Lady Babylon rides. You know, the seven heads and like the little horn and all that. It's all related to
The
this.
woman rides the beast, right?
Yes, the scarlet whore, right? Which is all Eyes Wide Shut, right? So, you know,
And
just to wrap
Crowley
it up with a
and
little bow,
Satanism,
right?
modern
Crowley,
Satanism,
yeah,
so it's all there.
yes, right,
But yeah, I mean, a lot there in the New Testament, there isn't this Mary worship. It's something that's grown up into the Catholic Church, and we were talking about indulgences and this payoff. And the indulgences built St. Peter's Basilica and Cathedral, and we'll see some of these pictures of the opulence and incredible, you know, power that, you know, Christ said to Peter, you know, I shall make you the foundation of my church. So the Catholic Church perceives itself as having that authority directly through St. Peter, who was taken to Rome like Paul, right? So, um,
right. Jupiter, right, yeah, the king of the sky,
right,
right?
real
Okay,
name is Simon, right?
right,
So
yeah,
Saul
right.
was Paul,
Hmm.
Peter was
But let's call
Simon.
him Jew Peter instead, right? Right, yeah.
Some interesting history, and you know, the Catholic Church. Some of the I mean, we had a long talk about Judaism, Catholicism, and how
Right.
true they are to their
Mind
biblical
control roots, like it's a mind control system, both of them, right?
confession. Like who's keeping? Imagine these priests in the confession they hear from their parishioners. Like,
Right.
whoa, this is more potent than an Epstein
Yes.
Epstein scam. Like I mean, if these guys are hopefully, if they're not telling the priest the truth, but if they are telling their priest the truth, these priests know everything, man. They know all
Right.
kinds of stuff.
Just the fact that they do know it keeps everybody else in line.
Sure
Just
does.
because you spoke it out to their ears and, oh, better not do something wrong against the priest because he has this power, you know? And it's just like what Kinsey was doing with his sexual histories of collecting everyone's sexual history, just like what
Scientology
Crowley
does
was
the same
doing.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
that.
dude. Whoa. Yeah. That's
Dude,
all
they had a
mind
file. They
control.
literally had a file on their own, Scientologist, about be as honest as possible. You want to really let all this stuff out so you can cleanse yourself. It's much like the Catholic Church. I don't know how much different
Yes.
is than confessional.
That's where they got
And
the
then,
idea.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, I got this file on you. Right. They had the same thing with oh crap. What was the guy's name? This cult. Nexium. Nexium did the same thing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They called it something else, but they had a literal file on all their people, you know, and they
Yeah.
encouraged them to like tell this story.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
I mean,
And then look at the, you know, the skull and bones. They got to jerk off in the coffin while everybody's looking, and they got to recite their entire sexual history with like a ribbon around their junk, and like everybody pees on him and stuff. Like that whole thing in the tomb, that ritual that they do, like that too. Like that is putting yourself under someone else by being. So that's why the Epstein had the cameras, and that's why that's why blackmail rules the world. Like, you know, so yeah, so blackmail is
one
the
nation
structure of
under
hierarchy.
blackmail. Yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah, thank you, Whitney Webb, she's
Yeah.
done great work. But anyway, the so like the hierarchy is deeply related to it's not just the Jewish power structure. We have this other Catholic power structure that, I mean, it goes deep in America, but in other countries, it is the power structure. You were telling me that earlier about like South America, like is totally owned by Catholicism, and their minds are owned, you know. And Britain has had this supposed break from Catholicism, but still, like above their crown, they have the the Iron Cross, on the top of their crown, like, and where do they get their power from? And the original structure of power came from the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope above the cardinals, above the kings or whatever, the whole bishops, and I don't know.
If you look
Johnny
at the
Cerrucci knows
history,
better,
yeah,
but
if you
still,
look at
yeah.
the history of the English crown, it's like a battle between Protestant and Catholic. They flip back and forth, and then there's
Right,
fights and all this stuff.
right,
And even what was the V for Vendetta, the guy who tried to blow up.
right. Guy Fawkes,
Yeah,
right.
Guy Fawkes, I think, was a Catholic trying to blow up a Protestant or
Right.
something.
And that was all just a whole plan to, there was no way the gunpowder was going to light. It was like, just a big
False
scam,
flag or
right?
something.
So that we could go beat up on the Catholics. It's like there's a lot, but I mean, is there really a division in above it all? So like this hierarchy structure we're going to take a look at, and some of these people that are members of the Knights of Malta are the most evil, like King Leopold of Belgium, Jimmy Savile, like just the list is like, and it ranges from all ends of all walks of life, like
Dulles,
Dulles,
totally evil
yeah, oh my
person.
God, yeah,
Clubfoot, like everything he touched was like death and
yeah,
overthrows of nation states and JFK and all this
right,
stuff. Like, and also involved in the killing of Hitler. This guy, all kinds of weird stuff going on. But yeah, they're there. And like you mentioned Jewish power, like a lot of the Jews worked for these types of people. They were the bankers for these types, like the Hohenzollerns and all these landed estates named estate people are in this. So like the Hesse, like if you remember the Hessians that fought in the American Civil War, like these
right.
houses and stuff like that are ancient bloodline houses that the Jews were allowed to work for, doing this
Yes,
banking and the
exactly.
Rothschilds and stuff like that.
Right. And
So
those, like the Jews they had that same role in ancient Babylon. They were like accepted into the hierarchy of power and given their own power status. And just like when they were writing the Babylonian Talmud, when they had 1,000 years of like, prestige and power in Babylon, where the original society was, you know what I mean, the beginning of society, they were there too, and they created the Talmud, and they created like, I mean, they created the the idea of Moses and that whole his books and
that's your position. That
that's
all
what I
those
believe.
old
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
So
I don't.
everything in
I think it was
Genesis and
created.
Exodus and all that's fake. According to you, that's
I believe that it was created in order to have power, like like Plato's idea of like the religion as to control the masses. It was created for that purpose, I think, and that again, I think why trauma-based mind control they do to the children, like the little babies as they're born, like we were talking about with circumcision, like that's inherent in this mind control structure of power, and it creates people that don't believe that they are sovereign and own themselves. It creates slaves, and in that sense makes perfect hierarchical members that everybody serves somebody, like Bob Dylan, and there's always somebody above them. And but yeah, so that's inherent in that, and I think that that's where, and the whole Torah idea was to cover up how like blatantly evil the Talmud is. I think they were trying to revamp it, make it look pretty for for all the nations, but then they got kicked out of all those countries because everybody realized,
109,
yeah,
109.
right,
That's the
right,
number, yeah.
yeah, and like because they recognized, oh, look at what they're actually doing. They're doing this Talmud stuff, and that's the same like the Pharisees, what Jesus was fighting against. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we were talking for an hour. Like it's great conversation.
We were talking about that Shmuley guy, the Shmuley rabbi who shows up all over the place. He was saying on his social media, he was gearing up his family to go watch a little kid get his penis bit by a rabbi. Like,
Right.
whoa. Like
Yeah.
this is a satanic type of ritual you don't even want to publicize. Like, whoa, you say that without shame?
That's
like
why
unbelievable.
that's why they got to gear them up because it's so evil and
That's
gross. Like
unbelievable.
it
Like,
really
whoa, you don't
it
want
like
those people
harms your
around
soul
you.
to
Ugh.
witness it. You know.
Imagine
You
going
know.
that over. We were talking the pre-show. Imagine going to 50 of those, 100 of those, like watching these kids scream. Like, what
Yeah.
is going on? Like, this
Right.
is unreal.
It
It's not in the
traumatizes.
it's not in the Tanakh. It's
Right.
not in the New Testament. This is something like that creeps into religion from paganism. And
Right.
if you look at the Old Testament, you're kind of like the whole thing is a fraud. But if you look at the whole Old Testament or the Tanakh, it's like a battle between the word, like the prophets and Moses, against all this witchcraft and the Pharaoh and Molech and all the really heavy duty stuff. And this kind of biting little kids
Right.
junk is closer to Molech than anything that came from the prophets or God.
Right.
Period. Indisputable.
Right.
So it's not in Moses'
Yeah.
law. It's not in the 620 rules that the Jews adhere. Some Jews adhere to. We were talking the pre-show, like saying
Right.
Jews is saying like Christians. Like you could be freaking Jones was, Jim Jones was supposedly a Christian.
Right.
So you kind of, it's not a word that would indicate with specificity what somebody really believes, because
Right.
there's still Tanakh kind of, and there's the oral, like the Jews did this really clever thing that Christians do probably as well. Is like there's the written law and then there's the oral law. So the oral
Right.
law is the stuff that we can adhere to, and we don't have to abide by this written stuff. It's like,
Right. And then there's like this like hierarchy of priests or whatever that just get to choose what the oral law is and they just vote on it and then just say, and yeah. So anyway,
anyway,
it's like it's a power structure of control, and like really most religions are that, you know, unless it's like a philosophy of life and creation and love, like a lot of it is just dogma and
the
but
Catholic
anyway.
Church is tough, man. They're tough. They do not like competition anywhere. So, like,
No.
you had the Albigensian Crusade,
Right.
you had the,
The Spanish
Spanish
Inquisition.
Inquisition,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
all these. I mean, the Hundred Years' War. We were talking about that, like just savage wars, like
Right.
really tough. And I think that part of the Templars was really, well, I don't think so. It was the Huguenots. The Huguenots were the Protestant French. They were like, there was a pit fight between the French and the Catholics too. Like the Huguenots had to leave France. I think they had to bolt, and a lot of them came to the New World. So a lot of the French stuff in Arcadia and New Orleans were actually Protestant French people who were trying to get away under the thumb of the Catholic Church. So, but I mean, I think that this group, the Knights of Malta, is the loyalists to the Catholic Church. So they're not rebels at all.
Right. So they have the island right in the center of the Mediterranean. What a perfect place for a military station to like
Yeah.
to take control of the whole waters of the known world at the time, I guess. Um,
And you'll see the cross on the coinage, but part of it is respect for the church. So that's one of the 8 elements. Each one of those like crosses represents something: loyalty, piety, honesty, courage, honor, glory, contempt for death, solidarity towards the poor and the sick, and respect for the church. So that's the 8 points of the cross.
it sounds nice, doesn't it? I don't
And
know.
then the 8 lingua, the 8 groupings, right? Auvergne, Provence, France, Aragon, Castile, that's Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, and England, Scotland, and Ireland. So they have like, that's the Western, tradition. And their
Right.
colors are all over the place, the red and white.
Right. So like the white and red and white are the colors of magic. We always talk about that. The blood of the starfire, of the menstrual blood, and the white of the semen of the male, and that combination is the magic of creation. And there we have that's the same cross like on the City of London. That's a Templar cross, and the City of London that was Temple Church,
The
right?
Temple
So
Church, yeah, correct.
right. So these
Based
are
on the Holy Sepulchre in the new, the Holy Land in Israel,
yeah.
current modern day Israel, whatever.
Right. So it is. So they're just two factions of that same cross, right? They're representing the same, like power above, and then we have the down below the red The red one where it's like blunderbuss on each of the points. It kind of bows out a little bit. That one is the Iron Cross, and it's again on the Nazi flag above. And that's on the crown. I was saying before, the crown of the King of England has that cross above, right at the top. And then this Vatican militia, the bird with the two heads, just like what was in Eyes Wide Shut, the guy sitting in the chair, the red cloak, that has that same crown above it. And if we could zoom in, I bet there's a Maltese cross, iron cross on top of that crown with that bird with the two heads.
And that guy on the bottom, by the way, is Anders Breivik, a mass murderer, hard right, I think in Norway or Sweden, but like went and shot 75 left-wing people on a couple islands. And he had this kind of fascination with these kind of Templar Knights of Malta type stuff. I don't think he was a member, but they kind of like there's an attraction to a real, not kind of fake left-wing thing, but a real kind of hard right kind of view towards these types of groups. Right. Breivik he had his own manifesto and all this weird stuff.
Right. So like the Knights of Malta are the ones that are out there, and they're the ones that they go on parades, and like we just saw in that picture before, but the Jesuits are behind the doors in the caverns under the ground.
The Jesuits are like the hidden like military. Right. It's a military. Knights of Malta is a military order, but they're like supposed to be focused on helping the poor and things like that. The Jesuits are different, but some of these names are really off the charts. Angleton, right? Andrew Bertie is like, we'll see later. I think he's included in this. He's almost close to sainthood. So in Knights of Malta, this guy Bertie was friends with. I think Charles Bonaparte is the grandson of Napoleon. Wow. Buchanan, Buckley, right. William Buckley, Prescott Bush, right? So the Bush family. I would assume that George H.W. and George W. are both members of the Knights of Malta, but not. It would make sense considering their kind of focus on the Middle East. Frank Capra, It's a Wonderful Life. So you have a cultural figure,
right?
Casey, the head of the CIA, Coughlin, Catholic priest, Bill Donovan, OSS, Dulles, Alan.
Yeah,
I guess Alan's son, either Alan or what was his brother, Alan, and anyway, Ivory Dulles became a heavy-duty Catholic. They kind of switched because I think the two brothers were. They were Protestants, and then Avery became a Catholic cardinal. Kind of an interesting thing, but John Foster. Avery was John Foster's son.
Right.
Flanagan, famous kind of Father Flanagan, Licio Gelli, industrialist. Galen, right? So Galen is a heavy-duty Nazi German intel agent who ran the entire Soviet kind of thing, and then was kind of absorbed into American friends with Alan Dulles. Like, we'll see this. Galen's a heavy duty. Paul made it to the United States. Grace is an industrialist. Haig, Otto von Habsburg, so the glorious Habsburg family. Hilton of the Hilton, International Hotel. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, right, is a Knight of Malta. So literal hardcore Nazi, like involved in all kinds of stuff.
And that's why the Nazi rat lines were so related to the Catholic Church, and right?
No question.
Right.
And the Pope at that time was very much of a Nazi,
he was a Nazi youth, right? Wasn't he a member of the Nazi youth? Right.
I think that
Pope II, John Paul II, was Nazi youth, I think.
Ratzinger. I think Ratzinger was known Nazi youth, which we'll see in these pictures.
Man, that dude's face is so evil looking.
Yeah, very disturbing. Doesn't look. The physiognomy is not like, whoa, this looks like a saintly figure. No.
How many demons are riding on that dude's soul?
J. Edgar Hoover is really incredible figure. Like he is so involved in so much stuff, even mind control too. He knew a lot, and a lot of people don't know that about his thing. Like his conversations with Esther Brooks in the 30s are really extraordinary. Iacocca, head of Chrysler, huge American industrialist. Joe Kennedy, head of the Kennedy family, right?
Right.
Son, Kuhn. I mean, some of these I don't know. The Luces, right? So the head of Time magazine. Henry Luce is a bone.
Clara Booth Luce, right? That's huge.
So they allow women into it, and there's a women's side of the Knights of Malta, but they become dames. So I forgot the name of it, but they are part of this umbrella of the Knights, but in a separate little group. And they have those kind of subgroups within the Knights of Malta. It's a little bit complex. Luce, McCone is like CIA. Tip O'Neill, he was the Speaker of the House. I don't know, Franz von Papen was a rival of Hitler, like literal one of these conservative Catholic German politicians. Somehow Franz von Papen didn't get killed in the Night of the Long Knives when Hitler killed off all of his kind of rivals on the right. And he was always fighting against the landed estates and stuff like that. A lot of those guys, like the plot to kill Hitler in June 1944 was a lot of the Catholic and landed estate people got together to try to kill Hitler, who was really considered an upstart to them. It was always in fighting him. Harold Kim Philby, right, traitor to one of the Cambridge Five, right, one of the people who spied for the Soviet Union. Very much involved. He had the credentials of this guy are crazy. Like he really was a great spy. He was a traitor, but he was actually something else. Schellenberg, Shakespeare, William Simon, Sinatra, Spellman, famous kind of American Catholic. Some of these other people I don't know, but yeah. So these are some of the known names.
So Sinatra was very much related to Kennedy getting elected to president, right? And then he's related to, Bryce Taylor writes about him in her book. I mean, he was like an enforcer, like beating up young women.
His mafia ties were really suppressed during his lifetime, but they are
too
very well known now.
Right.
Like he's in the mafia or really close to all those guys.
Right.
And yeah, he's something else, really interesting character. But yeah, he was like with Marilyn Monroe, like the week before her death, and like around and surrounded like all these people.
And also, I think you later in the slides we're going to see that Sammy Davis Jr. too is a member.
Correct.
Who is also a member of the Church of Satan.
Interesting. There's kind of a famous picture of him with Keno and LaVey, right?
Right.
Kind of unnerving, and then
best friends.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. So you see this organizational chart. You see how kind of complex it is. There's a Supreme Pontiff. They're independent, but you see the leadership positions. There's a Sovereign Council, Grand Chancellor. And that's what Alina Habas's dad is one of the chancellors for the American thing. Like she is the Kellyanne Conway of the new Trump administration, and her dad is a bigwig in the Knight of Malta. It's got to have, and she's a Chaldean Catholic. So a lot of these kind of like Christians groups predate the modern nation states of the Middle East, which were really formed fairly recently within the last 100 or 150 years, which is really incredible to think.
Right.
So you see this financial, national association, spiritual elements, prelate, cardinalis, patronus. And you'll see one of these guys is in here is real good friends with Steve Bannon. So you'll see Eric Prince is a member of the Knight of Malta. Bannon may be a member. He's definitely associated with it. This girl, Alina Habas, we'll see pictures of. I got a picture of her today at the inauguration. She's a member, or her dad is a member, excuse me.
So everybody was all worried about the Zionist faction of Trump's new cabinet or whatever, but so you're telling me that this is a Roman Catholic faction that's also just as embedded, just as they're integrated, working together with this guy Trump as the front man for both of those orders, really. Is that
I think so. I think he's definitely has loyalists, like in the Zionists, and the Jews, and these Catholics. Like he's done well of surrounding himself with those types of people. Like he had a redone kind of gilded. I did a show. Was it with you or somebody? I did a show with about the Ark of the Covenant that he had at Mar-a-Lago, like a real remade one made out of gold, so Ark of the Covenant, which had the 10 Commandments,
right,
which you think is just a big myth. You
I'm
and
sorry, dude. I'm
I don't
sorry.
mind.
And I'm just like
I've talked to
from.
people like my favorite is the New Testament myth. That's the Caesar's Messiah. Like it was all made up by
Oh,
Caesar.
that,
Maybe
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But I mean,
it's Joe Atwill.
it does make sense. There's a lot of researchers that that have thought this, that the whole thing was created, the whole Torah idea was created to have a state religion, like having the state and the religion be the same, and having it ordered from, you know, I don't mean to look down on religion, you know what I mean?
I don't
Like,
mind. These
you
don't
know,
bother
yeah.
me. I'm not
Okay,
offended.
okay, good.
I'm not definitely not. I'm not
Okay,
easily offended.
okay. It just
I
makes
mean
sense
that's a
to
whole
me.
nother show. We can debate
It
that
just
anytime
makes
you
sense
want.
to me, like the way that I've seen, the way that they use religion as a tool, like that's just how I see, like, you know, and I'm an individual who thinks how I
It
think, you
always
know.
has been, Sean. Religion and these priests and all that stuff are a core
Yes.
element of any human civilization.
Yeah.
Whether you go back to like the old shamans or whatever, they're always working under the elites to keep the populace in line or whatever, or show
Right.
their power. Like the shaman or whatever knows like there's going to be an eclipse. So
Right.
then the guy says, "We're going to have an eclipse tomorrow." How do you know that? I have
Right.
magical powers. And
Right.
then the eclipse comes, just like that movie about the
And it's the
Aztecs.
occult,
Yeah,
apocalypto, right?
yeah, apocalyptic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's the occult. They occult knowledge of the world around us, the eclipse that's going to happen, and they occult the knowledge of our own minds, how it works. So that's what keeps their power differential and keeps them in control. And the fact that you know, every king needs somebody to give him tips on how to rule people's minds with mind control. You know,
yeah,
like,
just like you always say, government, right? Governments.
government say, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, right, exactly. So, like, I mean, that's just how logically I figured.
it's never changed. It goes through all these the external kind of like colors and symbols could change, but the interest is always there. Like
Yeah,
that's how these people stay in power and promote their familial wealth of passed through generations. It's through behavioral psychology or applied kind of secret knowledge, I guess is the
right.
way it is.
Trauma-based mind control to their
Secret
own children.
societies.
Yeah,
Oh,
that too, right? Yeah.
like I mean, we talk about you and I know about the skull and bones, but imagine what it was like, 40 years ago where you didn't have the internet, where people didn't know these guys are in secret societies and like wheeling and dealing behind the scenes or in the Pilgrim Society, right?
Right.
So they have private diplomacy that you didn't ever hear about that. You might hear a glimmer there, but you don't know they're getting together like and meeting and chatting and probably keeping up correspondence outside of these public things. You just think that hey, the diplomat from the U.S. is talking to the Soviet Union. They don't understand all the stuff that's underneath the surface,
Right.
maintaining the agenda. Yeah,
Right. They've had Bilderberg, and they've had, the in the woods there, the one in the summertime.
Bohemian Grove.
Yeah, exactly. They got all these like get-togethers.
And it's interesting you mentioned Bilderberg because Thiel is a like steering member, Peter Thiel, who's Palantir and all the stuff, steering
Yes.
member of the Bilderberg group, who's friends with Eric Prince, who is a member of the Knight of Malta. And Thiel is trying to get Maltese citizenship. He wants Maltese citizenship. So he's an
Everybody
attraction to
wants
Malta.
Maltese. Yeah.
He
Everybody
may be a
wants that.
secret Knight of Malta that we don't know. And I think they probably covet powerful people to join their order. So I would assume there's been overtures to known people in the West, even Trump or something, to like, hey, do you guys want to become a member?
Yeah, so like
So we
this
don't know.
so for some reason my neighbors think that Trump is gonna like go against the deep state. But really, I mean, this deep state that you're talking about goes like,
This
this
is
is
the
the old
yeah,
world
yeah,
deep state
yeah.
of like original power, and it's loaded up right behind Trump, like hiding with Trump as their mask. Of like, look at us, we're Trump guys, you know, and then like underneath it's like, haha, same
He
same
could be
old
seen
shit.
as a rival in some ways, because
Hmm.
I think that the old world order probably wanted Jeb Bush to continue the kind of Bush tradition, and the public didn't want it. But Trump, they're from the boroughs, they're
Right.
upstarts. They are kind of more nouveau riche as opposed to, people who went to Yale for 3 or 4 or 5 generations or something like
The
that.
Trumps are nouveau riche, you think?
I think that I could,
Because I
according
bet
to
you it
like,
goes
well,
back.
to the Rockefellers or the Bushes
Right.
or the Vanderbilts, they are for
Yeah,
sure.
I guess so.
I mean, you have there. Where who was before his dad? Honestly, I mean, I think that his dad's dad was like there's some sketchy, scrappy history there. That
Okay.
isn't like somebody with came for money. I think they're so.
Maybe they came up like mafia style with their you know their loyalty and
I think
their
if you
brute force.
function, I think
Yeah.
if you function well in New York City, you have to address the mob.
Right.
You have to have some kind of either association or good
Right.
relations or something. Because if things go sour, you're not going to maintain your wealth, and it'll be bad. So
Right. And you told me also that Trump was bailed out by the Rothschilds,
yeah, I
right?
think that was a Rothschild
Financially.
bank. Yeah.
Right. So
So
like
anyway,
he has fealty to like he gives like he is a tool for all of them. And so like we everybody all the regular folk think they can trust this guy and he's gonna like save them and protect their guns and protect their freedom of speech and crap. But really
right.
this
We can
guy
play that
is
video that I showed you pre-show of him pushing in the seat of Adelson,
yeah,
like this is not an independent guy, man. Not in my
right.
opinion.
Yeah.
You want to show that? I'll show that
If
video.
you like, yeah.
This is just showing his loyalty and fealty to the state of
Yeah.
Israel.
You can see the flags behind him, like and she's sitting over on that flag side. And and how many billions of like money did she give?
$100 million.
100 million. That's huge. And so okay. So
She's
after
expecting something in return. I'd be like,
right.
push in her chair.
And that right there is like a sexual um it's like a sexual gesture. It's weird.
But watch, like he sits her down and then she gets up again. I think it's just like a subtle body language thing.
So yeah, I've been talking about how like ever since Trump got shot at, before he was shot at when he was on the campaign trail, he had American flags behind him. But now, and then the shooting happened. And then Trump has half of the flags behind him are the Israel flag. And
He's playing a pretty heavy game, man. There's no
yeah,
question.
I'm like, he's gonna do what they say.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like,
somebody, I mean, he put out something that was very critical of Netanyahu by Jeffrey Sachs. He put it on his social media. So he's willing to insult Netanyahu, but that doesn't mean he's anti-Israel.
well, it's probably they're ready to throw Netanyahu under the bus. Like he did his thing over all those years. Now, like, he's got so many
I think you're
charges
right.
against him. Like
Yeah,
he's a genocidal maniac. You know what I mean? Like they've used him up, and now they're gonna throw him away. And Trump is like, okay, see you later.
I think you're right.
I think that's how it goes.
Move on to the next. This is one of the old things. Like this is kind of like in the modern society. This was the deed of donation from Emperor. This is the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, 1530. The three islands in Malta are Malta, Gozo, and Tripoli. So this is kind of just the old history. And it is interesting. It kind of suffused American culture because what Charles wanted isn't money from the order. He wanted one Maltese falcon every
An
year.
actual bird.
Yes. And so that Maltese Falcon kind of morphed into that great famous movie, The Maltese Falcon, right? It's based on a
Humphrey
historical,
Bogart, right?
correct,
Okay.
historical reality. Go watch the movie. It's a good movie.
Is this
San Francisco.
falcon like a hunting falcon? Like, is
Yes.
it trained? Okay,
I
that
think it's
makes
like a
sense.
specialized hunting
Yeah,
falcon.
like they're bred there, and it's like a genetic line of falcons that probably.
I have a little bit on that in the slides, I think, but I don't know the specifics.
I
But I
haven't.
do know they're like pictures of people handing Charles V the Falcon. So
Wow, and the way that they train falcons, I have an old friend of mine is a falconer, and he had one, and like you starve the bird for days before you go hunting with it, and then it's like trained to go kill the thing, but then not eat it, and
Mm.
then and then it gives it up to the powerful one, the falconer in charge. It's like it's having control over this predator and like being
So true
the
pecking
master.
order, a
Yes,
true pecking order.
yeah.
Interesting.
The falcon rules the sky. Like it can kill everything, and if you rule that, it's like the two-headed,
Right.
eagle of the Order
RFK
Abkeo.
Jr. is a falconer, by the way. RFK Jr. and in the president.
Interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
known falcon aficionado for decades.
that's interesting. And
This is kind of
it's like it's mind control. You have to mind control the bird, just like you have to mind control society. It's just like training fleas was a thing that emperors used to do. Like it's like a practice of how to control unwieldy power. Like anyway, please continue.
this is a kind of a memoriam or something like that on Malta. You'll see the Maltese cross. It says His Majesty Victor Bourbon, King of the Maltese. So it's like an honorific to the local kind of king. But
That white
this
and
is
red again.
2024. Yeah, white and red.
That like those are the magic colors. It's like this magic space.
This is actually very recent. December 25th, 2024. A new government meeting area for the Knights of Malta within the Grand Master's Palace is being constructed. Progress is near completion. So
Right.
there's
There
the
she is.
Queen. Yep.
God, I hate that.
Present, huge Maltese cross. Her son is also a member.
Right.
This
There's
is
another
somebody,
evil witch, right?
yeah, but she's here with the ambassador to Malta, Summers Farkas.
Right.
Malta, this is Colonel Towner Watkins. Malta and the Knights of Malta have been central to Operation Gladio. Most of the key CI players in Gladio were inducted into the Knights of Malta, so that makes perfect sense.
So also she's got the diamonds, like the whole diamonds is like a level of hierarchy within the feminine mind control orders. Having Ghislaine Maxwell wearing the diamond dress is
Look at the
like
same colors as the Queen. Interesting, huh?
right,
At a
right.
Knights of Maltese thing.
Good
She would
point.
know. She would know the proper colors and
Right.
dress order and stuff like that.
Right. And she has her what she does submarine stuff.
Right.
And she also got there's that other
Terrania or something like that.
yeah, Terra or whatever. And
Terra
then
something.
she also would like the Malta is an island, and I'm
For
sure
sure.
that whatever was going on in Little St. James was probably just the same stuff that was going on in the island of Malta back in the 1500s or 1300s. You know what I'm saying? Like human trafficking has always been money and power, and it's bloodlines. Like, so I don't know, little islands and people that can have little submarines and people that traffic women and children. I think that that's a rabbit hole that people can dive into.
I think that Malta comes up in international intrigue because they were involved in the Panama Papers. I think it was leaked out of there.
Oh,
Did you
right.
hear that whole story? They had the
Yeah.
journalist, her name was like Alicia or something. They blew her up in a car bomb, like on Malta. And it was a huge international
Right.
scandal because she was reporting on very sensitive money laundering stuff coming through Malta. And a lot of these islands have like very interesting
Right.
under the sea type stuff.
And the whole idea of having a Maltese passport is like they don't do extradition. They have like no like the financial laws there are all skewy, so you don't have to pay any taxes to anybody, and it's like it's
It's offshore banking, right? It's all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
there's a lot to it. Yeah, there's a lot to that.
And also being
That's
a
why
Knights
they're
of
so
Malta.
coveted. That's why
Yeah.
they can sell them. Like you can you don't even have to own property, I think, or maybe you can own like a little square like 1 square foot of property and then have like a Maltese passport, which is like you're sovereign. You don't have a country above you. It's weird. It's very weird.
And I think the Knights of Malta is the same thing. I think they have like
Right.
extra um territoriality or something strange with them too. Like they have their own passport. Knights of
Right.
Malta, not Maltese, but Knights of Malta. It's distinct. the distinction.
So they're ordained by the Pope, right? From
Correct. The Holy See.
1100 or whatever, from the original when it
1100,
started.
right.
Okay.
And that's the South African
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. Thank you. So he's a Knight of Malta. You wouldn't think that. This is supposedly like a communist, whatever, but there it is. It says take possession of Malta 1530. There's a lot of art associated with the Knights of Malta. So you'll see a Caravaggio in the Maltese church it's priceless. It's got to be priceless, from the Renaissance, depicting the death of St. John, who was beheaded, right, by Salome.
So Caravaggio was a Knight of Malta.
Oh, really?
Like
I didn't
6 months. Yeah, here, let me show you.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Second here.
This is Darren. List of modern orders was to overlap in membership with the Pilgrim Society. You should follow this guy on Twitter. He's really does great, like literal, real research. But Order of De Molay, right? That was the final Templar Knight. So right. Order of De Molay, that was 13th century. Royal Templar, Grand Lodge, State of New York. Shriners or overlap. Templar, Plantagenet, Knights and Pythias. I don't even know what some of these are. Crown of Charlemagne.
Right.
Some of these I don't know.
The Order of Merovingian Dynasty, right? So, and the painting you just had up before was a red field with a white cross, as opposed to the white field with the red cross that is the Knights Templar, right? So I guess that's the opposite color scheme of their flag. But if you look, I'm sharing. If you wanted to share,
let me go back.
With Caravaggio, this is the Wikipedia of Caravaggio, and he did the beheading of St. John the Baptist.
Yeah, so that's in the chapel in Malta.
Right.
This picture.
So then he did two more, where this one, the head that's severed is Caravaggio's face, and that one is hanged in London. And then this one is in Madrid, where Caravaggio's putting his own face in there, like saying, "I'm sorry," because he was like excommunicated from the Knights of Malta, and he having escaped while in prison. Yeah, Caravaggio was defrocked in absentia as a foul and rotten member, in quotes, by an order of 6 months after his induction, and I guess he like murdered somebody in like a sword fight when he was drunk or some like Caravaggio.
Yeah, apparently he's a real rake. Yeah. Like a real kind of tough guy.
Yeah. And
St. John's Co-Cathedral, that's where it says, yeah.
Right, exactly. Right.
He himself was inducted Service Knight, so I got to add Caravaggio to my list of famous knights.
Caravaggio is one of them. And like so the signature of the one the work signed F. Michelangelo O. The F is frater to indicate his brotherhood in the order. It was popularly claimed that Caravaggio signed it, and he signed it in blood. This painting, after it was cleaned, the one with the head, the one that's in London, and he signed it in blood. And he said, a lot of people think it's signed, "I Caravaggio did this," in confession of some crime, perhaps connected to the 1606 death of Ranuccio Tommasini at Caravaggio's hands, which caused the painter to flee Rome. Like, he was on the run. Like, Caravaggio's history is very interesting, and like his work is amazing. Like just such a amazing artist. No wonder he was inducted into this, and because like I think that like there's so many criminals that are members of this order, I think that that's like just like the way that the order of jesters is a bunch of cops and stuff that do like a bunch of obscene things, but they are allowed to do so because they have the badge on, and it's I don't know if don't have time today, I guess, but we, in part 2 of this, if you'd like to do part 2,
sure,
we'll get into Jimmy Savile, one of these people. Like, Caravaggio was he was already a bad dude before they inducted him. You know what I
Right.
mean?
He
But
was
he
like
was,
always fighting and sword fights and like one of
yes,
these like medieval,
yeah.
the rake is the word that comes to mind.
And so like him being inducted, it makes sense. Like him, just like all the other ones that are criminals. You know what I mean? Like, uh, you get the Presidential Medal of Honor for doing, not not telling names, and keeping the secrets and doing all the evil for the other higher ups above you.
Right.
You know
Like
you
who
get
knows what Savile did, you know?
yeah.
He must have been involved. Like there are stories of like him doing all kinds of showing up in Israel. Like he traveled to Israel for some unknown reason. There
Well,
was like trafficking involved. There was some kid who like ran away from home in London and like got picked up. This is a notorious place to pick up straight like runaways and stuff. Is at train stations and bus depots. Picked up, brought to a hotel, and then Jimmy Savile walks in. Like, what the hell? Like, Jimmy Savile's famous. Like, what the
what a
hell is Jimmy Savile
nightmare.
doing with me after I got picked up at a freaking train depot?
Ugh.
Runaway. Yeah. So,
And then you
Savile's a
can imagine the
confirmed
horror
nightmare.
that
Yeah.
continues after that with part of the
Oh,
story.
bro. The darkest stuff imaginable.
Exactly. So that's like the hierarchy of power, the darkest stuff imaginable. What you just said, that's how it maintains that power, is the blackmail and having that, like, they can torture you, they can take away everything, they can do whatever. They are sovereign above all other power. There he is,
With the Pope.
Jimmy.
Is that his Maltese cross around his neck?
Yes. Wow.
Wow.
Wow, he's wearing the Maltese cross on his
Wow.
fucking shirt.
Crazy. This guy's a freaking necrophiliac, dude.
Right, right. Yeah. So, and that's just, that's probably what they do in the tombs. You know what I mean? All these like ancient orders, they got to show off to their friends like, "Oh, I'll screw the mouth of a dead pig," or whatever the hell,
Yeah, they
"Oh,
did that. One of the prime ministers did that, right?
yeah, 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 exactly."
It
So
wasn't
like,
Boris, it was somebody else. Like who? Those are the stories that come out. You know, Boris Johnson's wife is a full-on Crowleyite. She loves
oh, I
Aleister Crowley.
figures.
There's like a full-on
Jesus.
story about her. Like
And
this is the
then
guy who kept the Ukrainian war going. Like, no, we're not going to
and
agree to the Minsk agreement.
if you listen to Freeman Fly back in the day, you will know that George H.W., who was on that list we saw earlier, his wife could be and most likely is the daughter of Crowley. So George W. Bush's mother is probably Aleister Crowley's daughter.
Offspring, right?
Right. And if you look at the pictures and if you look at, her mother's history, she went to Sheffield to the
Abbey of Thelema.
Abbey of Thelema. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So and that was all sex magic. I mean, come on,
Oh,
guys.
all
Right?
day
You know what I
long.
mean?
All day
So
long.
like the bloodline, the real bloodlines are, if we could see the real bloodlines, I mean, that's one thing that the Caesar's Messiah, Joe Atwill. That's one thing that he said that's a good idea is we should get blood tests of all of these rich and see who's related to who and what, you know what I mean, to see the real, like, who is
Dude,
really who,
look
and
at
you
this
know what I
magical
mean?
circle that Boris Johnson's wife's in. I don't see the full thing, but you can see as thou, so it's probably do as thou wilt.
Right.
666 magic circle,
Triangle manifestation right underneath the
triangle.
altar.
This is
Right.
like a Crowley thing.
Yeah.
Cognac, blank, crow. I mean, this the people think that this isn't real. They think that these people don't do the stuff. This is like the Daily Mail saying it. You know,
Unabashed
yeah,
occultist.
satanic sex cult. Like this is just one thing that's surfaced.
Right.
And I wonder if she's related to Simons. I have to look at her thing because Simons was a Crowley biographer. Like you can see, like I wonder that would be just striking because he wrote an
Right.
Aleister Crowley biography. It's not that common of a last name.
Yeah. So
John
these,
Simons was his name. There he is.
like, you would, so if these things are true, then you could assume, well, like, maybe George H.W. was gifted this bloodline to procreate with. You know what I mean? It's like a here you go, guy. Like,
There it is.
congratulations. You
The
know?
Great Beast, The Life and Magic of Aleister Crowley by John Simons. I wonder if she's a relative to Sherry. That would be crazy.
I'll bet. This is just scratching the surface. I'll bet some of the listeners are like, yes, it's true. Yeah, look further, like look deeper, right? Because I'm sure some of your listeners know this. Because
This
that's
is a
really
quote,
the
bro. This
occult
I
is
didn't know
the
this,
real
Sean.
history. Yeah.
This is a quote from Leah Sublime, probably one of the worst poems ever written in the English language. This Cognac CC&C. Wow. This is so dark. Oh my god. Anyway, we're gonna have to do it part 2.
Yeah,
But yeah, we
we're
can
at
just
about
do
an hour.
Savile and the freaking thing. He's wearing the Maltese cross.
Yeah, right there. The red field with the white.
I mean, it's on his shirt too. So he's got the jewelry, but his shirt is also a
That's
white on
oh
red
right.
cross.
I was looking at his shirt, but you're
Yeah.
saying the
No.
jewelry that
Yeah.
is like a wow.
Crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's the same old Ishtar cross of 8 points, like same old goddess worship.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, yeah. The old religion, the old Babylon.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So
It's just
this
like
is
the Da Vinci Code, that's the
yeah,
whole thing, is like the old religion.
yeah,
Because these guys are into pagan sex magic,
right.
That's like the whole thing behind it. It's not just the bloodline of Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
But it's the secret, like behind. I think he was a church rector, like the main character is doing sex magic, but he's also like a priest. Anyway,
right. So yeah, I mean, like that's the true reality of power. I mean, and then you see little bits of it when you see like Trudeau's mother being such a whore with and then Trudeau looking like the other guy, and then and
Castro, he looks more like Castro,
right? And then you think, and then you got like
then you
look
look into a different worldview,
right? Yeah, and then
she's like a sacred feminine harlot, right?
Yeah,
and then Trudeau's tied into Annika Lucas. We were talking about in the pre-show,
right?
And she's like, Trudeau's a monster, and blah blah blah. And who else did she talk about? The guy in this picture right here, David Rockefeller.
Yeah,
who's using mind control. Like these stories are unbelievable, but they're like becoming more believable. Like we were talking about that.
The more shows that you do and that we do like this, it is becoming more believable. These are the nuts and bolts. This is the real stuff. It's not just Eyes Wide Shut was like, yeah, I believe that's true, and probably, you know what I mean? Because it's like it's art, and art is ultimately it's subjective, right? But really, this is. These are the newspapers. These are the photographs. These are the people, like actual members of the real orders. You know what I mean? This is the truth, and we have to recognize it.
But I mean, it's almost like these modern temple whores that go back to the Old Testament. We're talking about Molech and all this stuff. Like they literally had these weird temples where the women would be like temple prostitutes, and this is like that same kind of tradition all the way to the present, almost like that they're temple prostitutes, like they are in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
So you see that thing, the old becomes new, the Old Testament becomes new. Incredible.
Nothing new under the sun, right? Same old Sol Invictus that they've always been worshiping, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that book, by the way, the Da Vinci Code
right.
sold not 6.2 million copies, 62 million copies worldwide. Wow. Like, holy Moses, that's like up there with the Bible.
Right. And that's just because people know that there's something to it, but they want to know what it is for real. And then that guy is just like, oh, look at a bunch of shuffling cards in front of people. Boop-a-doo. Like it's just look at these symbols and those symbols. And meanwhile, everybody's reading Da Vinci Code. And this is the real stuff. And they can see it right there in their newspaper, like the Beast of Belgium and whatever else has been going on like all these years. And,
do you know? And I think Brown, the author, he was like a teacher at private schools or something. So he's probably in that environment,
just like Epstein,
in the realm. Yeah, he sees these old bloodline families and what's really going on. Like,
right?
He probably knows. Like, oh, there's rumors about you.
Right.
And so these are the old line families, the architects of von Habsburg. We show his name popped up as a member But Opus Knights of Malta, Opus T. He's the one who talked about European idea and European integration, and the symbol of the EU is the Tower of Babel, right? So it's pan-European movement, which seems to be at its last gasp. Like I
Well, they're
don't
going
know,
to
they're
transition
holding
that
together.
into
Yeah,
the new world order instead
yeah, I
of,
think you're
because the
right.
old world was Europe and the Mediterranean, right? Now we got to have China and everybody else,
Right,
Russia.
something else, something
Got to get it
strange.
all in this whole Catholic, overarching all in one, you know, and then they can have their, the end times of Antichrist come back to the earth, or come,
Hopefully, yeah,
being born
they
in
want
flesh and all
they
that.
want to fulfill Revelation.
Yes.
So, like, hey, we can kill off a quarter of the population, like Barbara Marx Hubbard. I'm on board.
Yeah.
We got too many of you bums, man. 4.5 billion need to go,
Yeah.
or our
Yeah. That
paradise
Mount.
is over a river of freaking blood, an ocean
Right.
of blood. Actually, excuse
Right.
me.
Just like Charles's painting, that blood.
Carrying a sword,
Yeah. Yeah.
got the monarch bird right there, monarch butterfly right on his
Right.
shoulder.
Right.
It's the real
Yeah.
power, like that. I mean, the mind control power is it? It's beyond military kinetic power. If you can convince people,
Yes.
the other thing is like people are coming back. Like even the geopolitical analysts, like pretty serious ones, are like, "Damn, these British perfidious Albion has never left the scene. They're still
Yeah.
around, tinkering around in global events, especially if you see Ukraine and." They've been fighting with the Russians for like 150, 200 years.
Right. Because Russia has such power. I mean, like they have such land. I mean, but they have that open border. That border is right there with Europe, and like they just keep getting beat up on by Europe.
Oh, it's the
At least
weirdest
America,
thing.
we have oceans on both sides.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
lucky. We're soft. The
I
Russians
know.
are not soft. The Russians are tough as freaking
Yeah.
nails, dude.
And we
Because they
keep
had
kicking the
25 million people killed by the Nazis and
right.
still ended up in Berlin.
Right.
So I mean, Blinken, thank God he's gone. He's one of the biggest freaking losers in this whole country's history. But like they thought they could make the Russians collapse. Like you are freaking
They-
stupid. I'd be worried for my life if I was Blinken or Sullivan or some of these architects who like started this war because the American people were not on board. There was no declaration of war, but these kind of like neo kind of techno politicians who started this war and millions of people died. We don't see it on our news because we're controlled, mind control.
right.
But like I'd say the Russians are still going to be pissed at the certain parts of the American people for a generation or two. And I'd be real nervous about these people moving around or flying around because there's some people with an axe to grind, I would say.
Well, hopefully
Nervous.
they don't think that the people are the problem.
They are not. I think that they know.
I think they know that there's
all the
orders
signals.
of evil, like
Yeah.
that we are captured
Yes.
by a satanic elite.
I think that the American people should thank Putin. Like he's
Right.
sensible. For us going. I mean, Ukraine is an American state. It's run by America. It's run by
Right.
Biden and his associate. Well, Biden's dead, but whoever's around Biden and puppeteering him.
Right.
So it's really the whole war is really financed by us. But we had no say in it. We had no accurate declaration of war. Hitler
Right.
actually declared war in the United States and Russia, like to his credit, like an honorable. Like this is one of the biggest scumbags on earth. But we didn't even declare war. Our people didn't even care for it. Like the whole Congress doesn't care. It shows how degraded we are as a people. But I do think that Putin and what's his like foreign minister, like they knew that it's really just these. He called it a vampire ball. Have you heard that clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
literal vampire. Like Putin said, it's a vampire ball, and these are the type of people, these vampires that have been parasiting off the peoples of Europe and the U.S. A lot of them are associated with Malta. I'm not saying the Knights of Malta is bad. I'm just
Well,
saying that they're in this kind of elite
if you look at
aristocratic mode.
the shield, I guess, on the coat of arms of King Charles, you will see the red dragon of Wallachia, and that is his bloodline goes back to the
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler of Transylvania, right?
Yeah, he's
Who
proud of it.
impaled his own people to scare off the enemy, like impaled his own citizens on pikes, and then would dip his bread in the blood and eat the. Anyway, so like, yeah,
Yeah,
blood drinking.
that's the inspired for the Dracula, right?
Right.
For
Yes.
vampires.
Yes. So
So
like,
he's
I
like
mean,
saying, I'm the heir of vampires.
it is vampires. Yes.
Vampirism.
Literally. Yeah. So
So
then the red and the white.
Putin,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Of their
when Putin
colors.
says the vampire ball, he probably has better information than any of the rest of us,
Yeah.
Like the Russian intel people have always been the best, like some of
Right.
the best out there. So anyway, it's interesting. He actually, it's in the Christian tradition, it's the what is it? It's in it, like
Eastern
the Holy
Orthodox.
Spirit. Holy Spirit comes on to people after Christmas, but he was actually doing the kind of Russian style Orthodox Christian thing where you dunk yourself. He actually filmed it. You dunk yourself in water to symbolize God the Father and the Holy Spirit. So he's making the sign of the cross and doing that, which I think is a signal. He's saying he's a Christian.
Yeah.
At least he's making that. He's making that
Yeah.
overt thing that Trump never does. But it is interesting that goes out to the public. Yeah.
Let's hope so, because Christians have that moral basis of morality. That's where it all stems from. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees, like, they don't. Their basis is on,
their offspring are the Talmud. The Talmud
yes,
are
exactly.
the Pharisees and Sadducees.
Right. And if you read the Talmud, they say it's okay to rape a little girl under 3 years old. It's like putting your finger in her eye. It's no problem. Virginity returns to her. It's just like a tear returns to the eye after you poke it with your finger. Dude, it's so gross. But anyway, people should really learn the real.
Yeah, well, Christ is burning in a lake of excrement.
Oh, right, burning
right?
excrement.
That's the Talmud. Yeah. I mean, it goes on and on. You can cheat gross. Certain people. Yeah, it's just all kinds of stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that's their true law, which has no basis in morality. And they're, so like we see. Anyway, they're different factions of the same bird. They're different powers that are doing the same control of the world, right? It is the old world power, and we're seeing it being shook up now. And like I've always said this whole time, Trump's job is to tear down the old world so they can build up their new one, have their order ab chaos. They're going to do this chaos now. Everybody buckle in, get ready, because we got the Zionists and the Roman Catholics are both fully putting all their power behind this Trump guy. And all my neighbors who are poor whites, they all think Trump is their hero savior, like
he's got him
ordained by God.
Yeah, he's got him.
Yeah,
I'll quote you about some of this Talmud. Like, this is Jesus Christ. This is from the New Testament. This is Mark 6:8. Jesus replied, this is from their own Tanakh, right? Isaiah. Jesus replied, you hypocrites, Isaiah described you beautifully when he wrote, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. You are so busy holding on to the traditions of men that you let go the commandment of God.
Right.
Then he went on, it is wonderful to see how you can set aside the commandment of God to preserve your own tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother. And he who curses her father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or his mother, korban, meaning I've given God whatever duty I owed you, then he need not lift a finger any longer for his father or mother, so making the word of God invalid for the sake of the tradition which you hold. And this is typical of much of what you do. Like, that must have hit hard. The Pharisees and Sadducees, that must have hit hard.
Right. I mean, it's a fallacy right there. Like he brought to light a cognitive dissonance. Like, this is, if that's the law, then how can you say this? Obviously they don't adhere to any truth. It's just, they just do what they're told. Right?
They don't adhere to the law they take credit for. So they say they're followers of the prophetic tradition, of the Mosaic tradition, of the Tanakh, but then they don't do it. It's the same thing. This is still relevant to this day, 2,000 years ago. Making the word of God invalid for the sake of the tradition which you hold. This is typical of much of what you do. typical of much of what you do.
Right.
This isn't like, oh, you have one minor little, setback. This is typical of much of what
Right. It's how it's done. Cognitive dissonance, right? Mind control, basically. Like even this truth, no, whatever. I believe this other thing that conflicts with reality, but I'd rather believe the thing that's.
But I'm going to tell you, I'm adhering to all of the tenets of the truth.
Right.
And that's
right.
the whole thing. Like they play a double game with themselves in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is Galen. This is like a big, heavy-duty Nazi.
Reinhard Galen.
Yeah,
G-E-H-L-E-N.
Intel guy involved in the rat lines. He got a lot of people help get a lot of people out. Friends with some interesting characters. This is another show in itself. This is a guy who's kind of lost luster in kind of the research community, but he's very important kind of tie between World War II and the post-World War II era. Friends with Dulles.
May we
and then it's just like you said, all roads have always led to Rome, not the top thing. So that's right. Yeah, we can cut it short too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can we start with Reinhard Galen next time? We have this PDF. We're gonna run through the same slides. We'll pick up part 2 if you'll come back. Okay, Absolutely. Wonderful. So thank you, listeners, for listening. And William, tell everybody where they can find your work, please, one more time.
William Ramsey Investigates. You can see it on my podcast, top 0.5% in the world, and then website, 5 books, 5 documentaries on Patreon. I'll put links to that too. But also see where people can find Wake the Dead too.
Right. Yes, because we're also broadcasting to your audience. Wake the Dead is my show, and you can find that at One Great Work Network /Sean-McCann. And you can find Wake the Dead on all the audio podcasters, and you can find the videos on Odyssey, BitChute, and Rumble. And just this is the kind of stuff that we talk about, and we go deep. So come on over and take a listen to Wake the Dead. So thank you, William, for letting me talk about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show. Good to talk.
Oh, it's always a blessing. We love you here, and you're a good friend of mine, and you're a good friend of the show, and I'm very glad to have you.
Cool. So thanks for the kind words. Awesome. Same sentiments as well. So I have the same.
Wonderful.
So, all right, let's end the stream. I'm ending it.
Awesome. Cheers.